Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Abigail if you're new, and most of my videos have to do with special needs, health issues, and feeding tubes. But in today's video, I'm going to be answering some of the most common questions that I get asked as a special needs adult. So one of the first questions that I get asked when people meet me for the first time is, how old am I? I'm 24. I was born with a rare birth defect called congenital diaphragmatic hernia, also known as CDH. Basically, the easiest way to explain it is several of my insides were in the wrong spot when I was born, and I had to have surgeries have a surgery to put them back in the right spot. Because of how sick I was as a baby, I was put on oxygen, as well as I was on a feeding tube for a while when I was a baby. I got off the feeding tube at like a year old, and after my first repair surgery, I would say my life was pretty normal. I mean, yeah, I have delays from my disability, and I have, like, my insides are different because of my birth defect. But I would say, like, as a child, I had a pretty normal childhood. So anyways, basically, my birth story is very very long, but I think it was here. I have an older brother, and then I'm in the middle, and then I have a little brother. When I was born, my older brother was 2.5. He was almost 3. And we found out, I think it was at the same time that we found out that I was a girl, that I had a birth defect called congenital diaphragmatic hernia, also known as CDH. Basically, several of my insides were in the wrong spot when I was born, and I had to have surgery to put all that back in the right spot. I also had a hole in my diaphragm, and I also had a hernia, I think, when I was born. And then at, I think it was like 3 days old, I had what they called the repair surgery, which is where they put all of my insides back in the right spot. And then I was in the hospital for, I don't remember how many months. It was several months that I was in the hospital, and my parents went back and forth. They went back and forth from home to the hospital, I think just about every day. We lived in Alabama back then, and we lived in a different town in Alabama than where the hospital was at. So it was like traveling every single time we went to the hospital, or, every single time my parents went to the hospital. And anyways, I spent like a few months in the hospital, and then I came home on a feeding tube and some kind of like apnea monitor thing. I'm not sure what all, but I was very sick as a baby. And I had a hard, I'd say probably about first year of life, and then whenever I was about a year old, I got to be taken off of the feeding tube because I was able to eat enough by mouth. I was starting to eat, like, crackers, and maybe that was before the crackers. I would say maybe like certain types of baby food and small things like that. I was having enough calories by mouth. So I was taken off the feeding tube. And yeah, it was very hard because we lived in Alabama at the time, and our family lived in a totally different state. And so there was no, like, really babysitters around to watch my older brother. We did have this one lady in the church that would watch us every once in a while, but it wasn't like the same thing as having family down. And we got to see our family for, like, I think, like, once for Christmas and, like, once for Thanksgiving, and I think that's around the only time we traveled down to the other state. So anyways, I was very sick as a baby. My first, like, I would say, like, year of life was difficult. But then we kept on being told that I was very likely not going to make it because a lot of babies born with my birth defect, the surgery is pretty extreme. They have to put, like, your insides back in the right spot, and a lot of babies don't make it. So they have to tell every parent, like, this long story, like, oh, your baby's probably not going to make it, and even if they do, they could have the list of these medical conditions, and they just have to tell you a lot of really sad stuff. And so basically we were told this whole thing or my parents were, that I probably wasn't going to survive, and if I did survive, then I would have some pretty severe disabilities, and that basically they wouldn't want to deal with that, and that my parents should get a abortion. And my parents basically told the doctor that if I survived my repair surgery, they obviously wanted to keep me. My parents did not want to have an abortion. And I was very sick as a baby, and then after I was about a year old, I got off the feeding tube, and then that whole thing happened where I could have small things, certain things by mouth. Now I feel like my childhood was pretty much normal. I also want to put in here that our church family at the time, when we lived in this other state, they wanted to throw me a baby shower, but my mom did not want to have a bunch of baby items at our house if I might not survive. So we decided that our church family could throw us a baby shower as long as it was after I was born that they threw it, because we wanted to make sure that I was going to survive and everything. So anyways, I survived the surgery and get out of the hospital and everything, and our church family at the time, so we lived in a different state back then, there was a baby shower, and I was actually able to go. People got to see me, and it was really, really cool. And then I would say, as far as, like, my childhood goes, I'm skipping some of the story. It's extremely long, but basically I had a pretty normalish childhood. When I was about, I don't remember the exact age. I know I was 12, but I don't remember how many years before that. I went to some physical and occupational therapy, as well as some aquatics, because I was just having some issues, like, understanding how to, like, learn certain things, and my doctor felt like I could benefit from some therapy. I had physical therapy, occupational therapy, and aquatics, which is like different exercises in the pool. Um, Physical therapy was like different exercises, learning how to skip, run, things like that. And then occupational therapy was like things like focusing, how to hold your pencil, things like that. Like, even like the little bitty things that some people might not even think about, that you would maybe need to learn. It was like those kind of things. Like, I remember like I was holding my pencil this one way, and like my therapist was like, there's a certain way you hold your pencil, so they like taught me how to do that. And like um there's this one specific therapist that I worked with at therapy that um he actually taught me like a recipe of like how to cook something, so that was like really fun. And then after we made cookies, we actually got to give them out to all of the people that were like at all the other people at therapy, and then we got to take some cookies home, so that was fun. um and now, as a special needs adult, I have scoliosis, just where my spine is curved. I have some vision issues. It's actually a lazy eye. You can get surgery for it, but we just decided that because we found out I had a lazy eye when I was about a year old, that it would be better just to do glasses so that I wouldn't have to get another surgery, because it wasn't like a huge deal. So I also have a lazy eye. I have gastroparesis, which is where my stomach is partially paralyzed from a previous surgery. I do have a hernia that we tried to fix, but we couldn't. Um, so I'm on a feeding tube because of a hernia and gastroparesis. Um, and then I also have delays, developmental delays. I have anxiety. And so, yeah, those are like the diagnoses I can think of at the moment that I have. So, now as a special needs adult, um, I've been having some heart rate issues, so I haven't been singing on the platform lately because we're trying to figure that all out. But I normally do sing at church, so I'm a praise singer. I make educational videos on YouTube, like this one. And I advocate for other people with different disabilities, um, like like educate people. I if there's like people with like different diagnoses than I do, I try to learn more about what they go through, and I also like really try to stand up for like other people with other diagnoses. Um, like if somebody's getting made fun of or something like that, I really do try to stand up for them and all that. So, um, yeah, this is not all of my story in this video. My story is extremely long. Could probably do like a whole documentary on it. Um, but that's some of the highlights of my story, or what I call my testimony. And I'm very thankful that I have the life that I have, and that I've gotten to help those that I've gotten to help in my life, and to encourage. And thank you all so much for watching. Bye, everyone.